Hi, I'm Matthew, and today we have an esteemed guest today for our interview, Paola. Thank you for coming to the interview. First question, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your occupation?
Absolutely. My name is Paola Diaz Torres, for the full name. I am a native of Ecuador. I immigrated to the United States in the year 2000 when I was 24 years old. So I don't know that I will ever get rid of my accent in English. And I came to the United States because of marriage. My husband and I met when we worked for an international development and relief organization. I used to work in my native Ecuador, and he worked in his native Bolivia. And then he was promoted to the headquarters of this organization, which is based in Atlanta. And that's what caused us to move here. This International Development and Relief Organization is called CARE, and it still exists in Ecuador as well as in Bolivia. Especially, I hope that the operations were re-expanded because for about 10 years in the prior administration, ever since Rafael Correa took over, he eliminated a lot of international aid programs. So this organization receives funds from the United States for the most part, and it is in 89 countries. So that's a little bit of my story.
That's super cool. Second question, I kind of see that like a lot of reasons for immigration is due to like poverty, like corruption, and just like violence. So
Mhm.
would you agree with this for the most part?
Yes, and in fact, I personally moved to the United States. I never thought I would leave the Ecuador because I love my country so much, and I intended to do public service work. My dream was to be the first female mayor of the city of Quito, which still hasn't had a female mayor as of yet. And I was working already in community and economic development, and I hope to use those skills to help people get out of poverty so that they wouldn't need to leave their beloved country. But unfortunately, in 1999, when we decided to leave, the country was in a really bad economic situation as a result of the 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 debacle of the banking system, which collapsed for the most part due to not a good regulatory framework, but also because of corruption. There were big banks were making basically fake loans to companies that they own and they were associated. So this was unsustainable, and then a lot of the big banks collapsed. So that forced the country into dollarization, and that created hyperinflation. And there were a lot of challenges that people were having in all aspects of the economy. So I that was one reason why I felt somewhat motivated to leave. My desire was to learn all of these good public policies so that I one day would come back and hopefully implement those in Ecuador so that people wouldn't need to escape. And as you might know, that 1999 was what is called the biggest exodus of Ecuadorians. I think there are different estimates. I can't remember what's the official number, but over time in that decade that followed the dollarization, about 700,000 Ecuadorians immigrated from Ecuador to Europe and the United States. And that's the biggest exodus that our country has ever seen.
I didn't know any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Super interesting. And that's like, yeah, I can see that's like a huge reason for why there's a
Yes.
lot of immigrants. Next question is like what benefits do you see like a lot of undocumented people get from the U like migrating to the US that they wouldn't have in their home countries?
Well, actually, I am aware of a lot of challenges that undocumented individuals have because the immigration policies are systemically inadequate across the United States, starting with the federal policies. And despite some states are more accommodating and welcoming of immigrants, like the state of California or even Florida, which is a state that doesn't have income tax, and they actually want and encourage undocumented immigration because that helps reduce their cost for the companies that are based in Florida. So it is very convenient for business owners, and especially Republican administrations are very supportive of bringing immigrants, more so than Democratic administrations, when you would think Democrats are more compassionate to the reasons why some people choose to leave their countries and leave everything behind to come for a better opportunity. So while there are many challenges, there are also many opportunities in some countries, including Ecuador. People could work really, really hard for their entire lives and not always be able to see the fruit of their labor,
Yeah.
and experience things like discrimination and other socioeconomic challenges that do not even have anything to do with a person's true merit and abilities, but it has to do with systemic racism and other types of problems that are that affect mostly people who have who weren't born in a family that has a lot of means. And
Yeah.
it's really hard in Ecuador if you don't have a support system, a family that has money to advance. Whereas in the United States, people often come with nothing, right? Like I immigrated with $500. Well, obviously, my husband had a job, and I didn't have one, so I depended on him. But that was a very privileged situation. But there's a lot of people who literally come with nothing, and they might use all of their savings into that ticket, if they were lucky enough to take an airplane to come all the way. Otherwise, people come walking to the United States. And despite that very challenging start, people are able to build something for themselves. They're able to build wealth. They are able to provide their children with safety, education, and health, which is unattainable in some of their native countries.
Mm. I feel like also like you said like these people have like their like skills and like they have like the abilities to like thrive and succeed, but in like some countries they're just unable to like put these skills to use and like find work. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know this guy who he's like considering migrating because he's a carpenter, but he just has and he's like a great carpenter, but he just has
Mm-hmm.
no chance to get work, so
Mm-hmm.
they're able to get money.
Oh, yes, your mom mentioned a little bit about him. And but individuals like that who have very specific and valuable skills might be able to find support, especially now that some programs that enjoyed support from international aid might be reestablished under this administration. So there used to be, so the agency in the United States that handles all of the international aid is called USID. And there's a program in particular that's called ACDI-BOCA. I'm sorry, the acronyms are really nonsensical, but there's a lot of acronyms in the international development world. And this organization is one that I used to work with for a while, where we try to help micro enterprises as well as artisans. And one of the participants in that program was Santiago Peralta, who is the owner of Pacari, which are the most famous Ecuadorian high-quality chocolates. So he participated in that program, and he was able to leverage the connections and from U.S. Experts in international trade. So he was able. Now I understand he exports very successfully to the United States and Europe, and he's gained a lot of recognition for the very high quality of his products. And he's a success story. So there are other. He's not. I mean, he's one of those. It's like when you are in the entertainment industry. It's really hard to be that
Yeah.
very highest paid and recognized artist. So sometimes that happens randomly, but and it doesn't happen to everybody, and it's hard to get to that point. But whenever you have a high value product, you have the right support, you can really grow. So I encourage you to research about that organization in Ecuador, or CARE USA, which is the agency I used to work with, and see what programs they have. Because I used to work in rural areas where we helped local micro rural enterprises, and we helped them improve their processes so that they would be more efficient, and also we help them sell their products.
Yeah, I'll do some research on that. You also know like you said, like that's like a kind of a random, not random, but rare story where he's became
Mhm.
super successful. But do you know like a lot of like do you know of a lot of stories where people become maybe like financially stable? Like
Mhm.
you see that happen a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. And I've been lucky enough for the first few years when like my first job in the United States was in a refugee resettlement agency where people not only have had economic challenges, but also they've actually survived war. And many of those individuals have had much more dire circumstances than, Ecuadorian economic immigrants. So these people have fled their countries because they've been persecuted, because their families have been killed. So a lot more tragic stories that they left behind. And still, with the right support, people are able to resettle in a new country that gives them support and a leg up to get started. And there's a government agency called the Refugee Resettlement Agency, which provides programs and services and stipends to individuals so that they can redo their lives in the United States. So they are able to normally, as they follow they leverage the resources that are provided to them and the programs, they normally are able to achieve financial security and over time. And when it comes to Hispanics, which for depending on where they come from different reasons. Like from Central America, oftentimes they also are escaping, violence,
Yeah.
gangs, activity, and that type of things. That's unavoidable if you stay there.
Hmm.
But all immigrants normally bring one thing in common, right? They've left something too important behind in order not to take advantage of every opportunity that's presented in front of them. And we're very resilient and work really, really hard. And I've seen for the most part success stories. Every immigrant has a story of that is a story of difficulty and challenges. And over time, they're able to overcome those challenges. So every story tends to be a story of inspiration.
That's good. So I know most people kind of are forced to immigrate, or they're forced to immigrate. They just have no other options. But do you see like some people are kind of like immigrate due to kind of like like they romanticize like the US and kind of have like see it as like a dream where they like like succeed there even though they don't have to leave their home country.
Yeah, that is also true. There's a lot of pressure, especially from families that have intergenerational immigration stories, where maybe they have family members that left Ecuador, 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 15 years ago, whatever the case. And whenever they immigrated, the circumstances were different, and it could be that they might have attained a level of economic success that right now it might be a lot more challenging to attain. So my piece of advice for individuals who are considering to leave whatever they have, their family, their support system, would be to at least do a little bit of preparation ahead of time. Especially try to make sure that they do enough research about what opportunities they might encounter when they emigrate to wherever is the place that they have chosen, or wherever they have family members, which for the most part people don't research. They just go wherever the cousin is.
Yeah.
And so that's not a great strategy. And the information is readily available, and the United States has so much information, just as the Census Bureau website. where you can really find how many establishments of what type are exist in a certain zip code, or and how much, what are their gross revenues, what are their gross profit, their net profits in average, and how many employees do they have, things of that nature. Which I know it requires some expertise in order to understand those numbers. So
Yeah,
there
especially
are organizations like the Ecuadorian American Business Chamber that can help provide that information. They can go to universities in Ecuador that can help them do some of that specialized research, and before they make the decision, and learning English, of course, because when you come, I also see a lot of immigrants who get trapped in the in that dream that they think they're going to arrive and they're going to start making money right away. And it isn't easy, it's very difficult, very competitive. And you're better off if you come prepared, like if you have if you know the language. First is something that will really help. Other people don't know, in order to be able to use the professional skills they have, they might need to complete certifications. So nowadays there's a lot of online certificates they can do online while they are in Ecuador. So whenever they arrive over here, they're not, having to pay very expensive rent in whatever state they are, just waiting to be able to qualify for the jobs they want to go after. And if they come prepared with a certification, etc., they most likely will have will struggle less. Because in my mind, what's the point of just struggling every single day?
yeah,
That's not that's not a dream life. I think it's important to have work-life balance, as well as there are things that do not have dollar signs attached to them, like having your mom and dad who may be poor, maybe they don't have anything, but they are a support system. They are, and if you're especially when you have children, they can be around to help raise your children, so the children are not basically raised on their own. And things like that are invaluable, because they are relevant, later in life, whenever the immigrants haven't been able to spend quality time with their children, and their children turn out to have problems,
hmm
all different types of problems. Because when children don't have the appropriate support from their parents, they can fall prey to a lot of problems.
yeah. All right, that's all. But thank you so much for this. I
My
truly learned a
pleasure.
lot.